Hello. So this subject is something I've wanted to speak about for some time now, but I had space issues, and it is quite a comprehensive subject. There are a lot of angles to look at. I'm going to try and cover as many of those angles as possible, but this video isn't intended to be completely exhaustive, so bear with me. What I want to talk about is the dominance, as I see it, of identity politics in the world of acting, both stage acting and film productions. I think it is absolutely obvious. It's unavoidable. It is so permanent in the industry at the moment that any director or producer can't ignore it, or actor for that matter. So to kind of, let's say, open this up, I'm going to present a scenario. Incidentally, I've been in a lengthy discussion, very civil, on a general topic group by the name of UK Politics, actually. Most of the people I was discussing this with were white, but there was a range of different opinions. Um, it was a very civil debate, but there was a lot of points raised. Anyway, let me lay out a scenario, right? You have two actors. Let's imagine this is in the stage context. You have two actors. Now let's imagine there's a role of Othello, okay, who is generally regarded to have been a dark-skinned character described as a Moor, right? Now let's say a white actor takes on that role. Very likely the response would be, "Oh, it's blackface," because the actor would obviously have to, or presumably use, dye his skin to make him look authentic to the character. So there would be huge controversy. There would be allegations of racism. There would likely be protests outside the theatre, and in all likelihood, the production would be shut down. I believe that is a very, very conceivable scenario. Now, let's say you have the role of King Henry IV, who was a historic King of England who was white, and a black actor takes on the role. You might get some internet criticism, but it's highly unlikely you would have street protests. The production certainly wouldn't be shut down, and if anything, would be praised for being progressive. Now, there's an obvious problem here, and that is double standards. Why is it if we deem blackface and yellowface to be outdated and archaic, then whiteface is okay? Why the double standards? Um, to be clear about my own position, I don't necessarily believe in today's context blackface or yellowface should be used. I think it is a bit archaic. I, as a white actor, would feel a bit strange about playing a black or Asian character. Um, Having said that, when I worked in China, I mean, this isn't really comparable because it was like a school production, but I took on the role of the Monkey King, which is a historic legend in Chinese culture. My school kids wrapped me up in that role. This was a kindergarten. They wrapped me up. Not a word of controversy from anyone. All the adults, Chinese adults, found it hilarious. They rather enjoyed my performance. I played up the whole Monkey King role. The point here is the Monkey King was a hybrid human, and he was half man, so Chinese man. Um, but there was no controversy with that. Everyone saw it for what it was. Now, perhaps the difference there is that was obviously, we weren't a serious production. It was a bit of fun, but that is a point worth mentioning actually, because you have obviously a difference between maybe a small town where the market is entirely white or entirely black for that matter. So creators have to work with what they've got. That's obviously different from somewhere like London or New York City, where you have a much more diverse range of actors. So yeah, I do believe in, for the most part, using blackface or yellowface is archaic. I can understand that. Racist, I don't know about racist. I think it's archaic. But my issue is with the double standards. I also think something needs to be said about authenticity. Now, the examples I gave were just of a stage production. In a film production, it might be even more, controversial. I remember a recent example is when Matt Damon took on that role in Great Wall of China. I didn't see the film, but the issue was, why isn't a white actor doing this role? As I understand it, the film was sort of fictional. It was about monsters climbing over the Great Wall. I haven't seen the film, but I know it did generate a lot of controversy, even though it was a Chinese director that cast Matt Damon. Um, and he worked alongside Chinese actors and actresses. And from what I know, he got on fine with them. There was no issues, at least internally. But this is something that people are always going to, well, no, not always. It's a recent phenomenon. Um, to look at another example, look at the character of Mr. I forget precisely the character's name, but the Japanese character in Breakfast at Tiffany's, played by Mickey Rooney. Now, at the time, there was no major controversy with that. It's only in more recent decades that has been more analysed, and people see it as cringeworthy. Mickey Rooney was a talented actor, talented comedy actor, and he said that his version of events were that actually he never got criticism directly from Japanese Americans, and he only ever got praise for that role. But it's been more recently that that became a thing, and the director even subsequently said he regretted, doing that. Um, so times do change, but my point would be, well, if you're going to hold standards, if you're going to hold expectations, then surely it should be consistent. The main contention I have is basically the double standards. I can totally understand actors not wanting to be typecast, but that then opens another dynamic to this. I have seen the argument by some BME actors saying, we don't want to be typecast in this role, whatever that would be perceived as, whatever a typical black character or a typical Chinese character would be seen as. We don't want to be typecast. Okay, I understand that. But I don't think you can have it both ways, where you don't want to be typecast, but then you complain if a white actor takes on that role, as might be the case. You can't have it both ways. Because in a screenplay, if you have a particular character, someone has to do that role, right? If you have a particular character which may not be the most glamorous or exciting character, someone has to do it. So I think that there needs to be an understanding of the pressure that producers are under often, to fill a role. It's a producer who does that, isn't it? Correction if I'm wrong about that. Well, whoever it is that has a job of filling roles, they're under pressure. Now, I believe that if you're in a city like London, certainly the roles should be offered to people who most fit the role. But it's simply not true to say that white actors get roles on a plate. That is not true. I mean, you get talented white actors who might always be classed or always cast, excuse me, as a white working class, struggling white working class guy or a hard man or something like that. So I don't accept that white actors get roles on a plate. I don't think that's fair to argue that. I think certain actors might be perceived to get a role on a plate because they're good looking or they're well built or something like that. I think in the world of acting, a certain degree of typecasting is unavoidable because the whole point about acting is it's an exaggeration of real world scenarios. Very often, more often than not, it's not just a depiction of real world scenarios, it's an exaggeration. So I think a degree of typecasting is going to come into that. But my issue is not so much a contention about the use of blackface or yellowface. I agree that's probably inappropriate in today's context. My issue is the double standards. Why, for example, if we look at, I quoted, fictional roles in the beginning, and those stage roles, I should say that Shakespeare's characters probably were a bit androgynous, if we're thinking of the gender issue, and also a bit abstract. So Shakespeare probably can be a bit more flexible. But let's look at more historic roles. Could a black actress play Queen Elizabeth I? she may be a great actress. She may really bring something to the role, but could she realistically play Queen Elizabeth I? I don't think so because it simply wouldn't be believable. No matter how good an actress she is, everyone knows Queen Elizabeth I was white. Likewise, could you have a white actor playing, say, Martin Luther King? No, it just wouldn't be believable. Um, because everyone knows MLK was black, and I'm sure there's many other examples. I think authenticity is pretty important. It's not absolutely everything, but it is pretty important if you're trying to portray a role. Now, mixed race actors, I think, could be more flexible. So, for example, if you have an actor who's mixed race, Asian and white, that actor, I think, could take on an Asian role or a white role because that is part of them. So there is an authenticity there. But basically, I think it's unfortunate that identity politics has really got into this in such a profound way, and I do believe there are double standards. I don't think there is the same level of controversy. Okay, people might say, "Oh, but there's complaints online." It's not. It's hardly the same as having protests on the street and demands for production to be cancelled. I just think it's very sad that those double standards seem to be accepted. Um, if something is not acceptable for one type of person, then why is it acceptable for another? That really bugs me. I think that it is it's just hypocritical. You can't complain about something and then say, oh, but if a black or Asian actor takes on a role, that's progress. I'm sorry, but you can't have it both ways. It's yeah. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. And I'm sure there's a lot of other dynamics to look at with this, but I don't have time to cover all of them.